Okay, so my name is Callan. I did my undergraduate at Tarleton, and I just finished my first year um, here at Texas A&M, and I have 3 years left of vet school, and I will let my two colleagues introduce themselves.
Hello, my name's Margaret Cook. I'm a third year here at Texas A&M Vet School. I did my undergrad at Texas A&M biomedical sciences, and I also did some graduate work here as well at Texas A&M.
Howdy guys, my name is Kristen Watts, and I went to A&M for my undergraduate degree. I graduated in 2019 and then was accepted to veterinary school at Oklahoma State University.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So for our One Health cellular biology presentation today, so if any of you have not already gotten to this screen and made an account through this, it's really important that you do so that we can complete the sections of the One Health module associated with cellular biology for the rest of the camp. Registration for One Health should have already been done today, but if it has not been, please contact one of us and we will help you get that done. And take a moment to pull up your One Health account because we will be asking you questions later. That way you will be prepared. And if you haven't already had that pulled up, that link at the bottom is the link that you need to go to. So you can just copy and paste that into your browser. So what is One Health? One Health is the concept that there's an interconnectedness between people, animals, plants, and their shared environments. The goal behind this is to achieve the optimal health outcomes for all involved. So when you think about it, the grass that the cow eats and then we eat the cows, this whole circle is super important to make sure that all living things are dependent on one another to survive and thrive. So making sure that we can allow all of those aspects to thrive is super important in veterinary medicine and in human medicine. One Health requires transdisciplinary cooperation from a local level all the way to global level to truly be successful. So this ranges from everything to your local farmers, to your big corporations that produce beef, pork, chicken, everything like that. So all of these play a big factor in the One Health concept. Why is One Health an emerging and important concept? The population again are around us, and subsequently, animals around us are increasing as well. So this can cause issues in terms of spread of disease between human and animal populations, and this is known as zoonosis or a zoonotic disease. Zoonotic diseases are on the rise in human populations. Can anybody think of any big ones? Maybe something that you would vaccinate your dog or cat for. Rabies, yep. So for the first one is coronavirus. It is believed that COVID-19 was transmitted to people from bats. There's still a lot that we don't know and that we're learning about it, but that is definitely one of the most recent and big ones. We have West Nile virus. That's transmitted from mosquitoes who have bitten an infected bird, which is why it's really important, especially right now. There's so many bugs out that we keep wearing our bug spray. And rabies, like y'all got, it's transmitted through saliva. So there are many facets to One Health. As mentioned before, One Health requires transdisciplinary collaboration across a variety of fields. This includes veterinary medicine, as well as human medicine. So to capitalize on this time we have together, we're going to be examining one small component of a much larger idea of One Health. And our goal in this is to understand cellular biology as it pertains to veterinary medicine. So keep that in mind whenever we're going through all of this, okay? So one example that we're going to use is the cow. Does anybody know another name for a cow or a scientific name for a cow? Bovine. What other guesses we got? Los Taurus. Those are two good, really good guesses. So for this, a bovid is another name, a scientific name for cow. And why would we pick a cow? So this picture of a cow we have beautifully demonstrates the relationship between different cell types to form a functioning being. So we have three different cells in this picture in particular. So we have a blue one, a green one, and a purple one. Without any of these cells, this cow could not be a functioning animal. So it's really important to know these different differentiations in them and that they're incredibly important, because without it, we wouldn't be able to function, animals wouldn't be able to function. So today we will be exploring the concepts of the cell theory. So how we're going to continue, you're going to be taking a pre-test today to assess your knowledge of cellular biology. Following this quiz, we'll talk a little bit more about cows, and then we'll dive into our One Health module. So for the pre-test, we're going to give you about 15 minutes to go through the pre-test on your One Health cellular biology. And once you're finished, we want you to give us a thumbs up, type done in the chat to let us know that everyone's done. Let's see. I will pull up the screen to give y'all an example of what it looks like, just to make sure you're all in the right place. And the link that Kristen just posted in the chat is the link to the modules. So y'all can go ahead and click on that if y'all don't already have it pulled up. So this is what it should look like whenever y'all get to y'all's Moodle One Health course. So what you're going to want to do is go to the side right here and go to cell biology. First, can I get a thumbs up from everyone if y'all have this screen?
I think ours might look different because we have teacher viewing abilities and they don't.
Or if you're on this module. I think that was everybody between the chat and the thumbs up. So once you're at the cell biology right here on the side, it's this first one. It says enter the cell biology pre-test. And so you're going to go ahead and click on that, and then you'll press enter. And this is what it should look like. And you'll come down here and click continue. It's 10 multiple choice questions. And I've already gone through this a couple times, so mine will not let me continue. So we will give y'all until 1:30 to do this. And then if we need to give y'all some more time, there's no problem with that. Just let us know whenever y'all are done and on the chat. So if anyone has any questions, please let us know, or if you're having any difficulties. So I think we still have a couple people who are still working on it. So if you haven't already put done in the chat, please do if you're done. Otherwise, we'll give y'all another 5 minutes. Okay, so how did everyone do on that? Did it make sense? Was it confusing? Were you totally lost?
I know I did really bad on it until I did the modules afterwards.
It's okay, I did really bad on Kristen's the first time without looking at the modules.
And then we have these geniuses. They're like, ah, it wasn't too hard. Look at you showing us up.
Good, I'm glad it was easy for some of you. I was the same way, Carla. When I took it for the first time, I had to think real hard about some past science classes. Okay. So something else to keep in mind with this is understanding the cow and understanding the cells is to understand the cow. I'm sorry, I am tongue-tied today. So as veterinarians, we're expected to understand each of our animals down to a cellular level. So without a basic understanding of the simplest structures, so on the picture you can see all the different types of cells, neutrophils, lymphocytes. So without a basic understanding of those, it's really, really hard for us to understand how an organism as a whole can function. So we're going to spend our time helping y'all understand how cellular biology. My computer's being funny. I'm sorry, guys. It's been being funny all day. Helps play into veterinary medicine. So how do cattle differ from people? First, we have their ungulates. Does anybody know what an ungulate is? Take a wild guess if you don't know. I think it's a hoofed animal. That's a good guess. Udders. We got any other guesses before we move on? Hoofed animal. So yeah, y'all are exactly right. An ungulate is a hoofed animal. Cattle are also prey animals. They're very herd oriented. So if any of you have cattle of your own or you've ever just driven by and see cattle in a field, oftentimes they are in a herd because it does help them feel more protected and safe. And they're considered ruminants. And so that's something to keep in mind for our presentation, our next presentation, because we're going to go a lot more into that. So how are cattle similar to people? Does anyone have any guesses on that one?
They breathe.
They do. They do breathe. We both breathe. They're mammals. Good. So we both require energy to survive, though that energy may come in as different sources. So we don't necessarily eat the same thing as they do all the time, but we both need that energy to survive. And we actually share about 80% of our DNA with cattle, which is kind of crazy to think about. and we are both made of cells. I know that's kind of cheesy, but that plays into our module. So we're going to take about 15 minutes to work through the cell theory section of our cellular biology module. And don't forget to watch the videos in the module. They're kind of funny, but they're also relevant because we do have some questions for you afterwards. So I will switch screens and show y'all where that one is. Okay, so we're back to our Moodle One Health course. So same thing, you're gonna go to cell biology. And like Margaret said, mine might look a little different than yours. But this one right here, it says enter the cell biology learning module. There's option for in English and in Spanish, so whichever one you prefer. And you click on it and press enter. And this is what it should look like. And you'll press continue. And it will start the module. If you go to menu, there's also this clipboard that's used, you can use to take notes if you wish. You don't have to, it's not required. But if it helps you, you're absolutely more than welcome to do that.
You want to make sure that you stop at the end of the first section of the module, because we're going to do the sections specifically at different times as we go through the veterinary related material. So when it says, congratulations, you've finished, then that means you've finished the part we're asking you to do.
Thanks, Margaret.
You got it, dude. And then when you guys are done, how long did you want to give them, Callum?
We'll do 10 minutes again. Oh, well. I guess 1:55. We'll meet back up at 1:55.
Yeah. When you guys are done, check out the Zoom screen. I'm going to have something fun for you to participate in while we wait. But everybody take your time, please.
And if any of you aren't seeing these pages or having problems, please let one of us know. Okay, so we're actually going to do our Kahoot questions at the end, so we can hold off on this. But when we do, we're going to be doing first name underscore last name, because we're going to keep track of who's won, because we might be giving a prize to the person who wins at the end of all the weeks. So for cell theory, y'all saw that there are three major components to cell theory. The first one is all organisms are made of one or more cells. The second one is cells are the basic building blocks of life. And the third one is all cells come from pre-existing cells. Was this something that y'all remembered from some classes that y'all have already taken, or was it something new to y'all? Good, I'm glad y'all remember. So for the first one, all organisms are made up of one or more cells. Just for fun, how many cells do you think make up a cow? We got a guess for billions. Do you have a guess, Margaret?
A guess. I really like billions and trillions. I'm going to do Googleplex because that's the biggest number I know.
What about Paige? Do you have a guess? No guesses? Okay, we all had some pretty good guesses. So we can't exactly say how many, but scientists have hypothesized that a single cow is composed of 150 to 420 trillion cells. So y'all were good with trillions. Can you give me an example of an organism that is made up of only one single cell? Oh, so this little cow over here is pretty cute. Cows are my favorite. Bacteria. Yeast. So some examples of organisms that are made up of only one cell is a protozoa, bacterium, so good job, Michelle, and yeast. Good job, Jenna. So Trich is a unicellular organism that causes major problems for the cattle industry. And so we have a little video here. And this is what it looks like under a microscope. So you can see the little bugs just kind of crawling around on the microscope. I think this one's cute. It's stuck. It's trying to go, but you can see its legs. So this is a video of Trichomonas foetus, and it's such a mouthful that we generally just refer to it as Trich. It's kind of a universal word, abbreviation for it. This is a protozoa. Does anyone have any questions about that? So Trich is a unicellular organism, like we already talked about, but it's a major problem in the cattle industry. And so several issues that this little bug causes is mainly in the reproductive system of infected cows. And this generally will lead to infertility, abortion, and the major cause is the economic loss in the cattle industry. So more than $100 million a year in Texas alone. So cattle that are infected with this generally are asymptomatic. So that means that you can't tell that they're infected. So if you think about like the beef market that we have right now, I don't know if y'all heard about the hacking, which is making beef prices go up. But this is something that also affects the economic aspect of us buying meat and producers producing meat as well. And if we don't keep this under control, essentially it would probably cause our beef prices to be even higher, which is something we don't want. And this is also considered a reportable disease in Texas. And this is bad news bears. So anything that's considered a reportable disease in Texas is pretty severe. And whenever that happens, it's obviously reported to the higher authorities, and generally actions are taken on that to try and eliminate it. But to prevent this, one of the main things that we do as veterinarians is a screening, and this must be performed on all bulls prior to breeding them. Because this is something that affects the reproductive system, it is sexually transmitted. So if we can screen them before we breed them, it helps eliminate the chances of it being passed on from cow to cow. Any questions about Trich? Okay, so Aspergillus, this is a multicellular organism. Aspergillus is a form of fungus, and it's capable of causing mycotic infections in cattle when consumed. So you can see in this picture, there's a cow eating its silage, most likely. And this is one of the main ways that cattle will get this form of fungus. And a mycotic infection is a disease that is caused by a fungus. The condition of having a mycotic infection caused by Aspergillus species is called aspergillosis. We have lots of fun words in veterinary medicine. Are there other hosts for Trich? I am actually not sure. I don't believe so. The only animals that I've ever seen it in or heard it being in is cattle, but Margaret or Kristen might know something different.
That's a really good question, Dalton. There is.
Muted?
Can you hear me now? I'm not muted.
Can anyone else hear Margaret?
I can hear Margaret.
Oh, okay. Y'all can hear.
Ooh, spooky. Very good question, Dalton. There is a different strain, if you will, of Trich, not the exact same, but it is still named Trichomonas foetus that infects cats. So cats that have diarrhea can be screened for this organism as well, but it's not technically the same form of this. It's kind of like Giardia, which is another form of parasite. There are different classes of the same type of parasite that only infect different species of animals, even though they are the same parasite. Very good question.
So here's a video that we're going to look at as well. And I'm going to speed this one up. So if you watch this Petri dish, you'll see that it's slowly growing with Aspergillus. And this is over a span of 6 days. I hope y'all can't hear my computer. It's getting angry with me.
We can hear you.
Okay. So again, Aspergillus, multicellular organism. So the big concern for this is fungal infections. And whenever this happens, it's bad with a capital B. Whenever this occurs, it can cause mastitis, which is inflammation of the mammary gland and udder tissue. That affects our milk production. Placentitis, which is inflammation of the placenta, which here is something that this kind of looks like in the picture on the left. Abortion and retention of the fetus and placenta. And the placenta is basically what wraps the baby. So if any of you are familiar with or have cattle, It generally hangs after the calf is born. And so whenever we have this, it can cause problems with that. And mycotic pneumonia, which this can be rapidly fatal. So it's something that we always want to keep an eye out for with Aspergillus in our feed.
What does mycotic mean?
Do y'all remember? We talked about it in a couple slides ago. Caused by a fungus. Good.
Gold star.
So the second cell theory is cells are the basic building blocks of life. So let's take a look at the cellular makeup of a cow's tongue. So if you were to take a piece of a cow's tongue and cut it super, super thin and put it under a microscope, this is what it looks like. It's kind of crazy to think that this is what makes up a tongue. And if I had to guess, I would say our tongues would probably look relatively similar. And so if you zoom in enough, you can see how all of these cells, there's hundreds and hundreds that make up these different layers of this cow's tongue. So for the third one is all cells come from pre-existing cells. So here we're going to have a video that shows the growth of various types of bacteria. And this is also similar to the Aspergillus we showed already on the Petri dish. So we culture the bacteria to amplify a sample. And by doing this, it helps identify a particular pathogen that may be causing harm in our patients. So here, basically, they have some samples that they accumulated. And they've now put them on the Petri dish, and over time, you can see them growing where they put them. So one type of bacteria that is of great concern in cattle is Clostridium chauvoei. And again, there's all kinds of crazy words in veterinary medicine. So some of you might know this as another term of blackleg. So this is a spore-forming bacteria which enters the body orally. Generally, whenever it enters the body, it'll lay dormant within the muscle until conditions of the muscles are anaerobic. Does anyone know what anaerobic means? We got no oxygen. Anybody else? Good. So whenever this occurs, it often occurs due to the injury of the muscle, and the blood flow is reduced, which means there's less oxygen making it to the muscle. So all of you were correct. Clostridium chauvoei will begin to proliferate, and it can cause sudden death in an otherwise apparently healthy young cow. So this picture right here on the right, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse or not, but this is really accurate with what it does look like, which is also why it's called blackleg. It's due to the discoloration in this bacteria, which causes necrosis and hemorrhage. So basically that means that the muscle is dying because it's not getting enough blood. So does anyone have any questions about any of the Aspergillus, Clostridiums that we've talked about so far? Any question at all? Which one are you talking about, Jenna? Yes, so it does. And the same thing applies to Aspergillus, which is why it's really important to keep an eye on like the food that they're having. So let's say like for Aspergillus, I think I can go back, maybe not. The silage that they were eating, if it stays around long enough and isn't eaten and gets wet and damp, it can cause mold or fungus. And Aspergillus is a form of fungus. And so same thing with blackleg. We have to be really careful of what we feed them and the quality of what we feed them to make sure that there isn't any funguses or bacterias or anything like that in them. Does that make sense? Oh. So we are going to go back to this slide.
While you're setting that back up, Dalton had a question. How does C. chauvoei spread throughout the body? When the cow ingests the spores of the bacteria, the spores move through the digestive tract and actually migrate out to the muscles. So it's kind of creepy, but true. And then what happens when you run cattle through a chute? They run into the metal and on the side of the pen and get a bruise, which causes necrosis and hemorrhage, because that's what a bruise is. It's pooling of blood because he damaged the tissue, and that activates the bacteria and causes the overall infection.
Those are good questions. We love it when you'll ask those type of questions. We're going to discuss how bacteria and protozoa can actually benefit our cows in the next presentation. And that is all for today's presentation. So we're going to see you tomorrow, same time, same place. But we also wanted to, if we were going to finish early, we wanted to give you all a little time to ask us any questions that you may have, anything about what we talked about today. And I know a lot of you, all of you are in high school. I'm not sure what the grade levels are particularly. If you have any questions, college applications, anything about vet school, So we wanted to give you a little bit of time now, and we know you'll develop them throughout the week, and so we will also be available to answer any questions you may think of tomorrow and next week. But if any of you have any now, we have really good firsthand experience and firsthand answers for any of you. So how does the application process go? For undergraduate or for vet school in particular? Vet school. So we can all give probably different answers on this. How long does it take to graduate as a vet? Okay, so after high school, we all did undergraduate. Like I said, I went to Tarleton, and Margaret and Kristen both went to A&M for their undergraduates. And basically what that looks like is picking a degree plan that is directed toward veterinary medicine. And what I mean by that is that it has all the prerequisites for your vet application, your vet school application. So like I did animal science because that's what I picked at Tarleton. However, Kristen and Margaret, I believe, both did biomedical sciences because that is the direction, the undergraduate degree that is directed towards vet school. And so generally it takes people 4 years, but you can do it in a shorter amount of time. I did mine in 3.5. It's personalized to everybody. So you have to do your undergraduate and have your prerequisites done. And that, again, anywhere from 3 to 4 years, maybe even more. So after you've done that and you have all of your prerequisites done, then you can apply to vet schools. Every vet school is different on their application process. They use, generally it's a website. There's 2 different ones depending on the school you want to apply to. And you do the application. It's super long, probably similar. It's more in depth, but similar to an undergraduate application. And it asks you things like your veterinary experience, as in working under a veterinarian. So in a clinic, in a shelter, anything like that. It asks you about your animal experience. It asks you about any big things that you did in your undergraduate. So if you got any honors or awards or any extracurricular activities you did in undergraduate. And it also goes all the way back to high school. It does ask you for your high school GPA and your high school rank, I believe, and things like that. So something to keep in mind with all of this is that even in high school and 100% in undergrad, it's super important to keep your grades up because vet school is super competitive to get into. There's probably at least several hundred, probably to 1,000 people who apply. And my class size is about 150. I'm not sure about Margaret's and Kristen's, but they're all generally about the same thing there. So they can chime in on that however they would like.
Yeah, Callan's right. About 900 people apply to Texas A&M vet school each year. And each year they admit about 160. So it's not a problem of it's not a problem of it's just hard to get in. It's just that there's just not enough spots for how many people want to go. So the best thing you can do is set yourself up for success by doing as well as you can with your grades to give you a better chance to get one of the spots. But it is very doable. It takes a lot of work. So I guess I'll just make the summary statement of it typically takes 8 years to graduate as a veterinarian by the time you've completed all of the education that you are required to do.
I'll just add on to those. Hopefully my Wi-Fi stays okay. So my class at Oklahoma State, we had 106 to begin with. So we're a little smaller than A&M. But I actually applied to vet school twice. I just applied to A&M my first try. I didn't get even an interview. And then I had a whole gap year to do internships, work. Honestly, it worked for me because I needed that little bit of break of school before jumping right into vet school. Because vet school it's a lot of work. You're gonna have very little free time, and it's basically another job. But on my second try, I applied to 7 schools. So I applied to Texas A&M, and then 6 out-of-state schools. And for the out-of-state schools, it's a whole different application process. So, like for the schools in Texas, you use an application service called TIMDOS, and that is for Texas A&M and now Texas Tech. So that's one application, and the other one is called VMCAS, and that's for all your out-of-state schools. And so I ended up getting an interview to Kansas State, no interview to A&M again, which I was very sad. I got an offer from Oklahoma State, and then waitlisted for LSU. And so I just ended up going with Oklahoma State because it's the closest thing to Texas. It also was like, hey, we're interested in you. We see potential in you. So that's why I went there. And then just general tips as far as like keeping up with everything. I recommend to everybody that you should keep a log of everything that you do. Because when it comes time for the application, you're going to be like, okay, I did this, 2 years ago? I don't know what day it is. So just keep a log of everything. Community service, any awards, scholarships you get, vet hours, animal experience hours. Like I showed 2 goats in high school through FFA, so I have that information. Let's see. And then so as far as the log itself, like write down what you did, who you can contact if you need like a letter of reference or something, how many hours, when you did it, just a little description too. Yeah, keep your grades up. And just try to diversify yourself. So going into vet school, I had it was a lot of small animal experience. And so I had always been interested in large animal. And so when I got to Texas A&M, I was like, okay, I'm going to try and do some large animal. And so I found a clinic 30 minutes away from Texas A&M. And so I got to work with a bunch of cows and goats and horses. And so I did that for like a winter break. That was awesome. And then we have a safari up here in Bragg College Station called Aggieland Safari. And so one summer, I applied to be a keeper intern. So basically, I follow the zookeepers around and just do husbandry stuff to get some exotic experience. And then this summer, I'm actually a veterinary intern at the safari. And we're getting to work on things like spider monkeys and giraffes and deer and all kinds of stuff. So it's really cool. So that's another recommendation. Just go put yourself out there and see what you like. So I think that's all I got for my spiel.
So the application process, how long approximately does it take to graduate as a vet? So like Margaret said, it's generally 4 years of undergrad, and then vet school is 4 years long as well. Majors and minors, I graduated in animal science with a pre-vet emphasis, and I also had a minor in biology. That was built into my degree, so that was just a plus. What is the best way to get vet experience? I'm having a hard time right now finding a vet to shadow due to COVID. That is definitely a challenge that a lot of people have been having because of COVID. Thankfully, I think we're on the downhill slide of that. But the best way to get vet experience, I would say starting off is, I feel like a lot of people probably have some volunteer time at clinics, which basically means you're not being paid for it. And that really sucks but that's kind of how you can get your foot in the door to clinics, because having some experience before working is something I think that a lot of employers in the like vet medicine field look for. We can totally elaborate more on that if you want. What do you recommend doing now in high school so that we are successful when it comes to applying? My advice would probably be to be in some sort of extracurricular, regardless of what it is. I was in sports when I was in high school. My high school didn't offer anything animal related because it was new at the time. So really doing anything so that you can say that you did something in high school, if either of them have an input.
Yeah. So this is kind of a marriage of that question and the one before. I think that right now it's hard for a vet to sign off on shadowing hours because there's the risk of exposure to COVID when you're working with patients, because animals can carry the disease, COVID-19. So I think the best way to ensure that they'll agree to have you is to actually apply for an actual job with them. And when I was in high school, I was the kennel technician. So I walked dogs, I gave them baths, I fed them, I cleaned them. And that got me in the door. And so what was great is that if nobody needed to be walked, then I could go watch in the surgical suite while I was waiting for the next round of walks to occur or something. So that way you're on their payroll. And so you're covered in their, if you will, clinic insurance. And so they're much more willing to have you come in and, you have some sort of formal with them. But like Callan said, it's going to get easier as things are getting better now. And then I also wanted to highlight that on your application to vet school, it's not just about veterinary experience. They have different categories of what interactions you had with animals. So veterinary experience is defined as a veterinarian was present during this interaction, but that's just one category. Another category is just animal experience, and that's like pet ownership, FFA. What else could there be? Volunteering at a shelter, things like that. And that still counts. Like vet school loves to see that. So I recommend just getting a job like that in high school, because then when you're in college and you have more time to set your own schedule, because you don't have the 8 to 3 of public school, you can go work as a vet tech, and they'll be more likely to hire you as a vet tech because you've done kennel work and they know that you know how a clinic works.
And I would say probably almost every veterinarian and vet student start their first job in a vet clinic was kennels. And I know that doesn't sound fun, and we probably all had the same thought. We were like, this is going to suck whenever we first got those jobs, but that's where you start. It's just facts. And then I think Margaret should cover that last question.
Yes, that's like a question made for me, Dalton. So I plan to be a specialist as a veterinary surgeon. So you came to the right girl. So when you graduate vet school, you can immediately go out into practice and you can do general surgery. We're trained to do that. But in order to be a trained surgeon and be board certified in it as a specialist, you have to do additional training. And that comes in the form of what we call an internship, but it has a bit of a connotation once you have your doctorate of veterinary medicine and residency training for a total of 3 to 4 years. Now, you're not actually in school, you're just not being paid a lot of money while they're giving you the payment in form of knowledge of the skills you're gaining. And then you sit your boards exam. That being said, while you're in vet school, we do have our junior surgery courses. So that's when we get to, actually scrub in and do patient surgery under supervision of veterinarians. We have surgery clubs, and then they do offer electives for people who are planning to specialize. So I've been taking those. So there's one about research in veterinary medicine, because commonly if you're going to be a specialist, you want to work at a university where you work in a vet school hospital where you'll have the patient volume to be able to do specialist procedures. And then this coming semester, it's a course called Excellence in Veterinary Practice. And it's specifically a course that talks just about what it's like as a veterinarian in a specialty, because there's many of them. There's about 40 of them. You can be a specialist in ophthalmology, cardiology, radiology, internal medicine. So I'm really excited about it. And you're more than welcome to ask me any more direct questions if you want.
And any questions that you may think of throughout the week, you know, we're here all week for those as well. Alrighty. Well, if there's no more questions, we'll stay on here for several more minutes if any of you want to hang around and ask any questions about anything. Otherwise, we will see all of you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.